Welcome to the Amplified CEO with VC and serial entrepreneur Richard Stroupe. Today's guest is Jeff Peterson, principal owner of Peterson Properties and a key figure shaping some of Topsail's most prominent commercial and residential real estate. Jeff owns over 25 vacation rentals on Topsail Island, the popular Surf City Line Bar and Restaurant, the Island Inn, and the brand new Peterson Station in Cary, North Carolina.
We both share common interest in outdoor sports and
Yeah.
activities. You ever had any like major, issues or accidents doing mountain biking? And
Well,
other stuff?
not mountain biking. I think I hit one time really hard, but running, of course, you're always either getting injured, getting over an injury, or that's it. It's one of the two.
Right.
You're pretty close to it all the time. So because I did a lot of running, so in the running, you're always, it seems like you're in recovery or you're just worried about getting hurt.
Mhm.
It's supposed to be so good for you, but it's like, I don't know about that all the time. So yeah.
Do you still run a lot?
No. So I now have, the last time I qualified for Boston, the marathon, it was the ninth time I was running it.
Mm.
And, but I had an issue with my knee and I was like, I got to get this looked at. And so my buddy is an orthopedic surgeon and so I go to see him, right? He's also on my running team, right? So I go to see him and he takes the x-rays. He goes, Jeff, you're done. I said, what do you mean? Because I thought I had a ACL, or not an ACL, but a meniscus tear.
Right.
And I knew something else, but I thought that's what it was. He goes, no, you have that. He goes, but you've got bone on bone. He goes, the inside of your knee is just,
Shot.
I said, well, I saw you last year. You said I had 10 more years. I mean, my knees were perfect. He goes, yeah, they are. They're great. I said, explain. He goes, yeah, it's kind of like a car with an uneven tread. So the inside is all worn out. I said, so it's not that great is what you're saying, But I was devastated because he goes, look, we could talk about maybe if you want to do a 5K sometime in the future. I was like, okay, if you race, you can't just go jog a 5K. You have to train for it.
Yeah.
And if you train for it, you're doing a lot of miles.
Yeah.
So it doesn't, to me, that just didn't sound appealing at all. Now I can do anything but. So I can bike, I can swim, I can do all the other stuff, but any distance running, which I've run some, 5-6 miles, the next day my knee's swelling up and I'm like, this just is not.
Could they
not
insert some kind of like padding or cartilage?
They did do that, but not really. It doesn't really work. Not for long distance. Now I could do shorter stuff, but anyway, that was because with me, I did a lot of triathlon, and triathlon, swim, bike, run, right?
Yeah.
I hated the swim. I tolerated the bike. I love the run.
Yeah.
I mean, I could do it all, but I didn't enjoy a 6-hour bike ride. I mean, just, even with training with friends, it was like, this is just boring,
Right.
So I didn't enjoy that as much. Now I got into doing a lot of obstacle racing, like Spartan, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I loved that. That was fantastic.
Yeah.
And I still like that. But the running part, you really have to train for.
Because each obstacle is about a mile apart, right?
Well, no, not that far. So the super, I think, is 8 or 9 miles, 9 point something miles run, and there's 30 obstacles. So you do 30 obstacles, you're doing several, and it doesn't always even out. So I liked it because my body type really worked well for it. Because the way I always looked at it is like, okay, I'm strong enough to do the obstacles and I can compete with the CrossFit guys, but I'm as fast as the skinny guys. So I had the best of both. So I could do really well in those. It just fit fit what I did very well, until it didn't, but those could be any race. I don't care what you do. And you know this because you've done competitions before, but any racing or any kind of sport will humble you. I mean, you're going to be humbled. I don't care. Like when I was, so at some point you're going to be humbled. The running, you get humbled every day. I mean, I'll do a marathon and back in the day when I was doing the marathons and I did a bunch of them, you'd sit there and you'd have somebody like, really? I mean, I hear people back behind me talking conversation and I'm just about to die, So it can be very humbling. but it was fun. It was very, very good.
Do you take any supplements like daily? What's your daily regimen look like?
Not really.
No?
I'll supplements that kind of come and go. Are like, oh, I should try that. Oh, I need to do that, but I just never really get into doing those.
Like amino acids or creatine,
No.
or peptides.
No, I know. Like my sons do all that weightlifting,
Mm.
and I've done it before when I go with them and we'll lift and stuff, and I'll start doing that then. But I just never stick with that.
Yeah.
I should,
Yeah.
but it would be better if I did.
Yeah.
But you don't get this kind of body doing all that.
A lot to maintain.
Yes. There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on.
There's this guy we were talking about on the last podcast where he spends $3 million a year just to stay young. Like he's got this whole anti-aging regimen where he takes all these supplements and vitamins and the specific diet but you get to a point where you could be in your 40s, 50s, or 60s and look 10 to 15 years younger, feel younger just by taking care of yourself.
Well, I do take care of myself. A lot of people don't believe that I'm 98. but other than that, yeah, I think I do pretty good.
Yeah. I think you do all right.
Yeah. So no, it is hard because you have to take care of yourself more and more. You have to watch what you eat, watch what you do.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest part with me. Diet, you can't, the old saying, and I know you know this too, you can't exercise away a bad diet. 70% or whatever the percentage is, but a huge part of what you do is your diet.
Exactly.
Not what you're doing exercise wise. So.
Yeah. Unless you sit in a sauna for, hours.
Yeah. I haven't done that. And I don't do the ice bath either. Have you done that?
Yes.
I'm
a big fan.
I would be a fan. Jumping in the pool at 6 a.m. to do swim practice made me not a fan of doing that.
I'm sure.
That's not fun.
We could just go and jump in the ocean right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
All you need is 3-4 minutes. Run back to your house.
The dolphin dip. Did you ever do that?
Yeah.
I've been there. No. I was like, no, I just don't need it.
Yeah. A couple years ago, my daughter, she brought some friends down for New Year's and we all did the dolphin dip. So
won the costume contest one year.
You did?
Dip. Yeah.
Yeah. What did you dress up like?
Macklemore. So big
the
fur
rapper?
coat.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The singer. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways.
I'm shocked you even know who that is.
Yeah. I didn't. Somebody else dressed me. I was like, yeah, okay, what is that? Poppin' Tops?
Yeah.
That's what it was. Yeah. Something like that. So, it was very stupid, but it was New Year. So, we all walked over there and, we all dressed up. Well, we used to dress up for it every year.
Yeah.
Because from the beach house, you just walk over to it. It's a quarter mile.
Right.
So,
Yeah, you're real close.
Yeah.
So other outdoor activities, do you exercise? You go to the gym? What do you do?
I have a home gym, so I do a lot of that now. I do go to the gym. I kind of go, either I'm going to the gym or I'm at the house, and I go through stages, of course. But I try to do more lifting.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah, I think you have to do that. You can't just, like when I was running and I ran with so many guys, and I was like, yeah, I don't want to be that guy, because you'd see guys who were just, they could not do a pull-up.
Right.
Had nothing. And I was like, no, you got to have some balance.
Yeah.
So that's what's always impressed me when I see a big guy running, like if they can actually run, I was like, wow, that takes something because, when you're hauling that much weight, but guys that are really competitive, I'm like considered a huge guy running, like huge body weight,
Yeah.
so.
What do you weigh, like 190, 200?
No, I weigh like 180.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when I was running, I was around 170.
Okay. Yeah. Because usually the runners, like long distance, are really skinny.
Oh, they're like 140.
Yeah.
135, 140. So my brothers told me we used to run. He's a bigger guy, right? So would run races, and it was like an out and back kind of thing. He said, I could always tell it was you when I saw you coming. He goes, I could see you from a distance because you were the biggest guy in the group that was running. And I was like, oh, thank you for that. Yeah.
What kind of a compliment? Unless he's like, oh,
it wasn't.
guy.
No, it was a compliment. It was a compliment. I said, it could be worse.
Big boned guy.
Big bone guy. Big bone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, other than that, I like to go out in the water. The water, and then of course hunting. So I like to hunt.
Yeah.
And
you just hunt deer, or do you hunt other things?
I just hunt deer.
You ever thought about going out to Wyoming or Montana and taking down some big,
not really. A lot of my friends, they're all into that. They really want to do that. That's long range rifle hunting. That's a hugely different. Even rifle hunting for deer here
Yeah.
is not the same sport as bow hunting. I only bow hunt. That's all I do. So it's you have to be up close and personal. You have to get them really close.
Yeah.
So when you're doing that, you come back, people say, you didn't get anything? Well, no, if I'd had a rifle, I could have, shot everything. But you have to get them really close.
So it's more skillful. Yeah.
There's a lot more to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried it?
I took a bow class, like as an elective in college. Archery.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. I'm not a big hunter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not good target hunting. Not target hunting, target shooting.
Yeah.
Like my sons are way better at target shooting. It's like, they're just more disciplined.
Yeah. I like to fish. Like when my kids come down for the summer, we usually go fishing a lot.
You know what I like to do? I love fishing, but I like to go clamming.
Clamming?
Yeah. Have you ever done that?
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's fun. You just pull up the boat and walk out and, you have your beer and you just, I mean, I love it. It's like Easter egg hunting.
Right.
The same kind of thing, right? But now where I'm on the waterway, right?
Yeah.
I can walk out, just walk right off the ramp and clam.
Yeah. So you grew up in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Richlands.
Richlands.
Richland.
You know how I know you're not from Richlands?
I said Richland.
That's right.
You pronounce it Richland.
Richlands, yes.
It's kind of like Topsail.
Yeah, right. Topsail is local. Topsail, you're not from there, which is exactly opposite. In Richlands, yeah.
Why do they pronounce it Richlands and not Richlands?
I don't know. Somebody came up with it years ago. Who knows? We're going to call it Richlands. Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Just to pronounce the A little bit.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I remember, so my parents were not from Richlands. And, my dad was Connecticut and, blue blood, and mom's Irish. And so we didn't have that Southern drawl growing up. So even though we moved to Richlands very young, I remember going out and, boy, you ain't from around here, are you? Yes, sir. Actually, I am. But you get some of that.
Yeah. What part of Connecticut is your dad from?
Westport.
Westport?
Yeah.
Yeah. My daughter goes to school up in Massachusetts.
Okay.
And then sometimes we go down to Mystic and, the famous Mystic pizza place.
Yeah.
And there's, a beach not too far away.
Well, I still have family up there.
Yeah.
In Woodbury. So my sister's a big horse person, and they've got like they train horses, and there's like a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty. There's certain areas it's really pretty. And there's certain areas it's not so pretty.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Well, where they are, it really is. I mean, it's nice up there where they are. But
yeah.
I don't know that I wouldn't want to live up there. So no.
So did anybody in your family growing up, were they entrepreneurs? They run their own businesses?
My dad did.
Okay.
He had a small, he worked for other people, and then he tried several different things, and he had a small upholstery shop. But other than that, that's probably about it.
And maybe he picked up some of his entrepreneurial spirit. And
I think so. More of the can do or make it figured out.
Yeah. I mean, that generation, you had to do something.
Yeah.
I can remember my grandparents and my dad had multiple businesses, and, I didn't really think about it until you're like, oh yeah, that's right. He ran this business. He did this business. They did this. They did that. So growing up in a small community, you almost had to invent your way of life. Yeah.
That's true.
That's good. So then you went to East Carolina.
Went to ECU, did not graduate.
Okay. How many years did you make it? Freshman?
No, I was there. Well, freshman, I wasn't there because I was, by this time, my parents' business was not doing very well. And I learned how to upholster, and I was their only upholsterer. So they had, if I went to school, they had to close up.
Mm-hmm.
So I stayed. I agreed to stay for a year and worked in the business and worked for them, and then worked nights. At nights I worked restaurants and stuff. Try to make money because I wasn't getting paid either.
Right.
Yeah. So
keeping the family up.
Yeah. So there was some of that, and then the second year I did go to school, and then I went for 2 years at ECU, and then so I probably had, I don't know, a semester and a half or so to graduate, and didn't. But
what was the decision to drop out?
Got married.
Okay. Did you meet your wife there at East Carolina?
No, hometown.
Okay.
I didn't say these are great decisions. These are just decisions you make when you're young.
I know. It's like pivots. It's all about the entrepreneurial pivot.
Yeah. Well, believe me, there's been a lot of pivoting. Yes. Yes.
Your nickname might be Mr. Pivot.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because when people ask you, like, well, how'd you start this? Or how'd you do that? And what's your big plan? And I'm like, you back into it. You're like, well, here's the plan. And you have this big plan, but most of the time, it's not a big plan. Or if you had a plan early on, that isn't really how it evolved.
Right.
Like, it evolved into something far different. Like with me, I opened up my upholstery shop on my 21st birthday and worked it out of the second bedroom of a house that I was renting. I traded my car to my dad for a sewing machine. And that's how I started.
So was this being a competitor against your family's
No. He had already gone out.
Okay.
They were
closed
done.
up shop.
They were done. He was selling insurance. And so what I had done was I basically bought his equipment and traded a car to do it. And then, and that's how I started in the second bedroom of a house that we were renting.
Okay.
So it wasn't exactly a big master
So
plan.
upholstery, what were you?
Well, so what it was I was 21. I was working 3 different jobs before I started, restaurants, going to school. Wife became pregnant. I was like, I can't make it working 3 jobs in restaurants. So I knew I could make money at upholstery. I knew how to upholster. So I did that. And my dad was not happy when I told him I was going to do that. He was furious, actually, because he just thought it was a failing business.
What year was this?
It's like 1981.
So your upholstery business, what were you making?
Recovering, so reupholstering furniture.
Okay.
So you'd reupholster people's furniture. So to get business, I would have to go to interior design shops, furniture stores, try to do anything to get them to like use me to cover their clients' furniture, right? Well, at 21, you couldn't get a lot of people to.
Yeah, who's this kid?
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Yeah,
They're like, yeah, well, thank you. Well, that kind of thing. And eventually I'd be like, look, if you don't like it, you don't have to pay me. You'd say anything to try to get the job. And you started getting a little bit, but really it was a struggle. You just weren't getting any activity with that. So I remember I actually I was like, I have to put an ad in the paper. I've got to do something. I got to do something to get some business, right? So it was either put an ad in the paper or pay the light bill. So I put the ad in the paper and got business and did it fast enough where I could pay the light bill. Because I remember I took the people's furniture, worked overnight, completed it, called them up to bring it out. And they were like super worried because, how could you get it done that fast? So they didn't think it was a good job just because I did it too fast. So then I had to convince them, well, it was good and they liked it. But I kind of had to do it really fast because I picked up and delivered and I had to rent a van. So I couldn't keep the van.
Right.
I mean, you're talking shoestring. This is about as shoestring as you can get doing that. There wasn't like you couldn't call up your parents for money because they didn't have anything. So
was this in the Richlands area? Or
no,
Greenville?
this was in Greenville.
Greenville,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the early years, you were hustling, trying to get some business.
Yeah, that was early. That's the last job I ever had. I never worked after that, after the restaurant. I did get a job teaching upholstery at night at the community college. Yeah. That was supplement my work, and that was nice that they hired me. But just funny stories related to that.
Yeah. So how did you pivot? Did you go into real estate at that point?
I kept doing the upholstery, so I did that for several years. I bought a house. I read this book on how to buy real estate with little or no money down, and I can't think of the author. It doesn't come to mind right this moment. But anyway, I read that book, and I was always interested in real estate, just very interested. And so I talked a man and his wife in Ayden, outside of Greenville, into selling me their house. I mean, they had it for sale, and I talked them into selling it and owner financing. And I had, believe me, if you'd have seen how creative I was trying to do that stuff, you'd have probably just laughed. But anyway, he liked me and he went for it, and so we did it. And I had out back, there was a little separate garage, so I ran the upholstery out of that. That's how it started.
Interesting. So what was the next venture?
Well, the next thing I did was I met somebody in Raleigh. And so I started driving up to Raleigh and seeing this person up there, right? So I was like, as long as I'm here, I have to work. Like I couldn't just not do anything. So I started drumming up business up there, and I'd go up on Friday, pick up all the furniture, deliver it, and then bring it back. So I was actually doing a lot of work in the Raleigh area.
Okay. Still in the upholstery business.
In the upholstery business.
Yeah.
In the upholstery business. So I finally made the switch and moved up to Cary.
Okay.
So that's when I moved to Cary. That was 85.
Okay.
Yeah, 1985 is when I moved there. So I'd already been doing it 5 years and had established myself in Greenville, but there's much more in the Raleigh area.
Way more opportunity.
Yeah. And
So
then I started buying property.
did you pivot into real estate before starting some of these other businesses like the consignment stores? And
Oh, real estate was first. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's hard to say exactly. Like I said, it's not all linear. Yeah. So what I did was I had the upholstery, and when you're upholstering, you're basically, if you don't upholster, you're not making money, right? So you're either making money or you're not. I knew that I needed to do something where I could make money without upholstering, without doing the physical labor myself. So the first thing was to sell the fabric. And I knew that, I had fabric, but it was just too expensive. So the first real venture that I had was to open up a fabric store in addition to the upholstery. So that was a struggle because fabric costs a lot of money because you're buying it's wholesale. I'm buying from the manufacturers, from the big warehouses up in High Point. And it took a lot of inventory to do that. So that was a struggle to get that started. And basically I just had to work twice as hard because I'm paying for everything by doing my upholstery. So the upholstery is what funded everything to begin with. It was one of those businesses that I had, and I still have it, but you kind of like, oh, you do upholstery, you kind of felt like you're not a CPA, you're not working in the corporate world. And I always felt a little bit like, oh, geez, I'm just doing this, but actually that's what funded everything. That's how it all started. So.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. So you got to a certain point where you had some excess cash, and you said real estate's the next venture.
Yeah. Well, I didn't have excess cash. I just knew I'd keep trying to buy. Yes.
Buying real estate with no money.
Yes. So that's what I did. That's what I was doing.
Okay.
I started finding some of those at the time that you could get FHA properties, and you could assume somebody else's loan and not qualify. So if I thought that I could cash flow it and it would make some money, and I don't care if it may be $10, I would buy it. I'd just buy whatever I could, knowing that it was going to appreciate in value. I was going to be able to depreciate it, right, and take the tax advantages. So I knew all the advantages even back then of how to do real estate, but that's how it started. It was all townhomes and condos and little stuff like that. What vicinity
was this at? Was it?
There's in Raleigh, Cary, yeah.
Okay.
All in Raleigh, Cary.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's how I started. That's how I started building, and it's hard to remember the first bigger property that I actually bought, but that's kind of how it started.
So it's kind of a snowball effect.
Yeah.
Started with townhouses and really more residential type.
Or, most people, that's the way most people start in real estate. They start with the residential, and it's the easiest to acquire, less money, and then you kind of venture into commercial. I just built townhomes. The hardest part of real estate is convincing your lender, right? Getting somebody to believe that you know what you're doing.
Right.
And when you're a landlord, so you've got several years under your belt and you're a landlord and you have properties, then they take you seriously. But if you go in the first time, they're not going to look at you too seriously.
Right.
So,
yeah. So did you have some lending partners to help you kind of get the real estate business off the ground? You did it all yourself?
Yep.
Yeah.
Never took a partner until my last venture in Holly Springs.
Okay.
It's the first and only one I've ever taken.
How many residential units did you kind of collect in the beginning?
There was several townhomes, and then I built 31 townhomes, and I kept half of those, and then I built some more, 16 more, and I kept those. So I kind of kept some, sold some. I kept as many as I could. But there again, your lenders wouldn't just let you keep everything.
Right.
I was fortunate because they looked at me as a landlord and not just a builder. If I'd been just a builder, they would not allow me to do that.
Okay.
They said, no, you got to sell it. You got to sell it.
When did you decide to become a developer or a builder?
I didn't decide. It just kind of happened,
Okay.
So builder, as far as a builder, I'd worked with a couple of builders on some smaller projects when I did commercial, and there are so many mistakes, so much money that it cost, extra costs, and I think a little bit of that, right?
Oh, yeah.
That I felt like, I think that I could do this myself, and I don't think I'll make 20% in mistakes. Even if I only make 10% in mistakes, not knowing what I'm doing, I still think I'll come out ahead.
Right.
So that's the reasoning why I became why I got my builder's license. That was
Yeah.
it. It was like, I was just soon doing this myself.
So you got your general contractor's
Yeah.
license?
Yeah.
How hard was that to study and get?
I'm a good test taker. I always tell people, I said, I have a builder's license. They say, oh, you're a builder? I said, well, I'm a great test taker. I have a builder license, but there's guys out there that are far better builders. They know much more about it, or they don't have a builder's license, but they can't necessarily pass the test.
Right.
I mean, some people are just, not good at written tests, right? So it wasn't that hard. I mean, it was difficult, but not that.
So were you still running your upholstery business?
Yeah.
And doing the developing
Yeah.
and acquiring properties at the same time?
For 20 years,
Okay.
probably more than 20 years, I upholstered.
Okay.
And I had 5 or 6 upholsterers working for me, and my goal was to out upholster every single one of them and still run my businesses. So that's that was my competitive nature, always doing that. But yeah, so that's kind of what I did.
Okay.
And eventually, though, the hardest part was quitting upholstery, quitting doing it myself, because even though I could make money at it and I was good at it, it doesn't really make you money. Like, it makes you bass boat money. It doesn't make you yacht money, right?
Right.
So that was a difference. But the difference was making sure that I could just, okay, I need to go to the office. That's what I need to do. I need to go up, and I don't need to be back here cutting and sewing upholstery all day.
I could hire somebody to do that.
Yes, exactly. So that was it. But it's very hard to step away.
Yeah, there's always this comment like it's better to work on your business and not in your business.
Yeah,
so
that's a good way of putting it.
If you're working 8-10 hours a day in your business, you don't have any time to look externally, either on how to improve the operation or expand.
I always say that I make more money driving in my truck up and down the highway than I do sitting in the office, because that's when your mind frees up and you start thinking of things and you expand. But when you're in the weeds, like, I like being in the weeds a lot. I like balancing the checkbooks. I like doing that. I like doing the accounting part, but I don't make money at it, and it's not a good use of my time.
Right.
I mean, it's just not. But I do it anyway. I do some of that. So,
yeah, you have to manage your time.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the key success factors.
Yeah.
is properly managing your time, because if you get stuck doing more of the mundane type operations, then like you said, you don't have enough time to look, acquire new businesses or new properties.
That's right. That's right. And it's very hard to manage that part. I mean, I do it, but I like thinking of new projects. I'm not a good manager. Like, that's not my strength. My strength is not managing. I mean, I would think that's probably my biggest weakness, is managing, where I like to, I get excited about a new project, but then once I figure it out, then I'm like, I'm on to something else. I just okay, I'm done with this. So, but then that project's still sitting there. You're like, okay, it's still got to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
would you say your strength is leading or like visioning?
I think visioning.
Visioning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have ideas. I'm an idea guy.
Yeah.
was a movie? Was it Night Shift, where Henry Winkler and and he goes, I'm an idea man. Yeah. Well, I have, what do you call it? The great ideas and then the not so great ideas.
On how to execute.
Yeah. Well, some of the ideas, you look at, people say, what kind of property do you buy? I said, I buy the good, the bad, and the what the hell was I thinking?
Right.
And if you ever do anything in property, and if you say you do property, you're going to have some of that. And if you say you've never made a mistake, I'll guarantee you've just been paralyzed by analysis the whole time and never done anything, right?
Of course.
I mean, there's no way. I mean, I've bought things and I'm like, what have I done? What did I do? Or I'll spend so much time figuring out how to do the deal, I won't think enough on should I do the deal. And I think that's the biggest learning part for anybody, is should you do the deal? Even if you can do it, should you do it? So that's one I've tried to learn more and more. But
do you have a group of advisors or people you trust to kind of bounce some of these ideas off? Because you said the analysis paralysis. I mean, it's a real thing.
Yeah.
People have a really issue with that.
Not really. I'll bounce things off of friends sometimes, but most of them they don't do quite what I do. It's hard finding the right type of person to bounce stuff off of. my kids have actually, become very good at like, Dad, do we really want to get into this? I mean,
Yeah.
seriously,
Yeah.
so more with them, I think, than anybody, but not a whole lot.
There's these peer groups for entrepreneurs. I think one of them is called Tiger 21. You pay a fee to join, and one of the things they do is you have to do a portfolio defense where you pretty much tell everybody where everything you have. This is what I have, this is what it's invested in, and you have to defend your decision. Like, here's why I like it. And then all these guys will just poke holes at your strategy and try to get you to think outside of the box.
Yeah, I call that a banker.
Right.
No, but that's actually pretty interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So
have you done that?
I went to one meeting.
Yeah.
And when I discovered what the annual fee was, I'm like, wait, I'm paying you a fee for what? It's like, I've got a couple buddies I can do that now for free.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I have a few people very similar to us where they've sold businesses, and we routinely run ideas past each other and say, what do you think of this idea? Here's an investment. And sometimes we co-invest on things.
Right.
Because it's good. It's good to have an opportunity and like, hey, what do you think about this? And, let's throw some money in this together.
Right.
Then we kind of share some of that due diligence and responsibility of ownership of like, oh my God, what did I just do?
Yeah. That helps. That I'm sure that helps.
Although I didn't do this with a real estate here locally. I should have, involved more.
I've had some really good things here in real estate. And then I've had a couple others that are just like, what in the world happened? But most of it overall, if you look at the whole portfolio, it's done very well.
Yeah.
And I can always, if I look at my overall decision-making process or what I've invested in, most of the stuff has turned out very well, obviously, because if it didn't, we wouldn't be sitting here,
Right.
So, but there's always those few that you think back on, you're like, what would I've done differently? What did I do? Where was I thinking wrong? Right. And that's, I mean, if you're, self-analysis, you have to have that. Right. So you have to go back and go like, okay, what did I do? How could I have done this better? What did I do wrong to begin with? Was it ego? Was it the very first, your very first impression? Did you just, were you wrong on that? And sometimes that's it. Sometimes it's right from the get-go. You're like,
yeah,
wow, I missed it from the gate.
And it's a lot of times the same problem that private equity and venture capital experience is.
Right.
They look at financials and they look at models and they look at projections and, the market, and they start making assumptions, and they'll buy an asset and think, all right, you know what? I figure that it's going to grow X, Y, Z, and we can, have a 3 or 4X on our return on capital and, grow the business or expand it and use it as a portfolio roll-up methodology. But sometimes being in the field, being on the front line and talking to the people and understanding how the services or products made can give you a better feel of the future and how things are made or serviced versus from a financial statement.
Your first point with that is said the initial assumptions. So if the initial assumption, the very first one, is skewed, or if it's wrong, then everything after that, just like go back to the very beginning, and you're like, what was I thinking when I did that? Why did I make that assumption? Oh, because I took this person's advice, and let's go back and look at that person.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Let's go back and look at that person. Why was I listening to them? Yeah. So sometimes you just make that, the initial assumption. And when you do that, then you're going down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So I've seen that.
When did you pivot into commercial real estate? So you were really heavy in residential building and selling and trying to keep some of these. I assume you're cash flowing, renting some of these out.
Yeah. So I pivoted very early in commercial. And it's an interesting story. So I was doing fabric, had the fabric business and upholstery shop, and that was growing very quickly. But the fabric business and fabrics take up a lot of space. And it was growing. I was growing out of the space. Well, Cary's a very expensive area for real estate. Even back then, even commercial, was very hard. And I could feel that I was going to get squeezed out of a location. And I was renting the space at the time. So, and this had been going on for a couple of years as I was building the business. And one day I'm driving by, and on Chatham Street, I see this, and I'm saying dilapidated. I don't mean dilapidated. This is a piece of shit warehouse.
Mm.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I've been driving by this thing for 5 years, but this would be perfect. It's huge. And so I go in the warehouse, and it's just a field. There's no parking. There's no windows. There's nothing. It's a continuation. It used to be an old cookie factory.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it used to be. So the guy had it for sale, and it had been for sale forever. And I talked to him, and I make the deal on the spot. I was like, I want this. I'm going to do this, and I just had all these ideas. And it was 20-some thousand feet, and it was big, and but it was raw, very raw. But I just knew that would be the future because it's right there.
Mm.
And so I remember going home that evening, and I was talking to my wife at the time, and I was like, well, and I was just telling her all about it and how it could, this is why we need to do it, and it would just go on and on and on. And after about an hour, she's like, well, I just have one question. I said, what's that? She goes, well, if it's such a good deal, then how come nobody else has done it? which actually is the standard response you get from everybody on every deal you've ever made, every bank, everything.
Yeah.
Whereas my response was, because I'm the only dumbass in Cary. That's why. And I was furious. I put down the deposit the next day, and it turned into I'm not going to say a nightmare, but it was very, very difficult to get done. Mm. The initial estimates was like $50,000 to get it up and running.
Oh, wow.
It turned into 500. It turned into 500, the same guy.
Yeah.
And I was like, how do you go from 50 to 500? He's like, well, there weren't any lights, and it was dark in here when I went in. There again, I'm not in jail, so I managed to hold my temper, but I was furious. But then I was like, how do I do it? Because I didn't have the money. I mean, now I'm sitting here with a piece of crap property that I can't occupy. Yeah. So I started doing all the work myself. So my son, Mike, at the time, I think he was 15, 16, and he'd come up on the weekends, and we're cutting and sawing, and we're doing everything, painting. We're doing it all ourselves because I couldn't borrow the money. No bank would loan me the money either. I went to every bank in town twice over until I was almost done. Then they loaned me the money. Yeah. And so we got it done. But we're sitting there. I remember this one story. So it was a cookie factory, right? So everything had to come out of it. And there was these 3-inch or 2-inch pipes, like the rows of 3 of them, and they're asbestos filled, and they're at the top of the building, and they're filled with cookie grease that has been in there for
oh my God
10 years. So I had scaffolding, and the scaffolding go up 26 feet, and on the top of the scaffolding, and we're taking a Sawzall and cutting these into 10-foot sections to drop them because they had to be removed. They're filled with cookie grease. And the smell was so bad. You couldn't find anybody that would do that work. And I remember thinking at the time, I'll never get the smell out of this place. I really felt that I was like, now I had gotten in way over my head, and it was going to be nothing. But we got it done. And to this day, we laugh about it. It's like, I still have that property. That's where my office is. So,
is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's where the consignment store is now.
Okay.
And then we do the upholstery in the back, and then we cut up the other spaces, and we rent out all the other spaces going all the way down.
Kind of like day offices, or?
There's different businesses. There's a dog grooming. There's a electronics. There's a sign shop. There's training school. Like a gym kind of place.
Okay.
But yeah.
That's your very first commercial.
That was the very first commercial.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we wound up doing a lot of it ourselves. We had so many mistakes that were by the contractors that were just terrible mistakes.
Right.
So that's when I was, and I was like, I really have to get involved. I have to learn this.
It's amazing how many mistakes are being made during commercial development.
But now that property's ripe for redevelopment. It's downtown Cary. It sits on acreage, and the real play on that was probably scraping it and going up vertical. I don't know if I'll do that or not. Right now, it makes very good money just as the rentals.
What's always an option in the future?
It's a great option. It's probably the biggest piece downtown Cary right now. That I say we could develop it. But yeah.
So from there, what?
From there, I went to, then I started doing the townhomes. I started to build some townhomes and trailer parks.
How many trailer parks?
I wound up buying 3, sold 2 of them, had the one, and that one trailer park that I've had for 25 years or so, is now part of what's going to be Peterson Station, which is the high density mixed use development that we're building.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Peterson Station is going to be built on the trailer park land.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the trailer park was 7.5 acres,
Mm.
and I wound up buying out 8 of my neighbors over the last several years
Mm.
to compile 20 acres to do that project.
Got it. You broke ground on that, right? Yeah.
Oh, it's almost done.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many square feet is that?
Well, there's 317 apartments and 47,000 feet of retail.
Have you got it pre-leased or
Not pre-leasing on the residential yet, but starting to pre-lease on the
mixed
commercial.
use?
Yeah. Yeah. So we've already got a lot of that done.
Yeah. You sold some equity
I did. Yeah.
for the development.
Right. That was the first project that I ever took any kind of equity partners on. And they're not really equity partners per se, but it's more equity and buyback at the end, that kind of thing. I'd never done that before. I had no experience with it. At the end of the day, I think we raised maybe $3 million. I stopped raising money because I didn't need it.
Mm.
And, when COVID hits, everything hits, it was like, I don't want a bunch of money sitting there. So I wasn't raising money. I wasn't selling any more shares for a long time. So I still, right now, 1,000 shares. I own 850 of them.
Mm.
I gifted probably 150 of them to family. And the rest is shares that, friends. And
How much percentage did you keep?
85.
85%.
Yeah.
So the developer developed the whole thing
of the project. What I wound up doing at the very end was I'm ultimately selling the residential to a development partner. So they'll get the
okay.
residential.
Got it.
As of right now, I still have it all.
Okay.
They wound up buying all of that from me. I'm keeping all of the retail. I still own 85% of that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
That's a pretty good trade-off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got my money back a long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're set up for the future.
Yeah.
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 And is the idea to cash flow that and start leveraging other type?
Yeah.
development opportunities?
I'll take that. Of course, I'll leverage it out because at the end of the day, the deal that I made with the other developer is I have that debt free.
Mm.
So it's, 47 you're looking at, it's a good chunk.
Yeah. That's
And
a
this is
big
prime
project.
retail. It's class A.
Yeah.
So you're not like it's some of my other deals where you're, B-rate property,
Right.
kind of stuff.
Right. When did you launch your ventures down to this area?
Before COVID,
Okay.
but not long before COVID.
You started buying like beach houses.
Yeah. So what happened with the beach was I'd always had beach property. I had a beach house. I had a beach house before the one I have. The one I have now, or the original one that I have, I actually tore it down or moved it off and then rebuilt on that back in 07. I think it was 07, yeah.
Here in Surf City or?
In Surf City, yeah, on South Shore Drive.
Okay.
So I did that, and we used a management company. And back before COVID, I think the first property I bought was the Brass Pelican. Yeah, so I bought that. And then behind the Brass Pelican, there were some apartments. And I knew I wanted to redo the Brass and put a rooftop deck on there. It's like, oh, do a rooftop. And you could look on the rooftop, you could look out over the ocean, which you still can. But there's a small apartments that are in front of it. So you look over those. But if you look to the right or the left of those apartments, there's huge mega houses on either side. So I bought that defensively just so I could keep it low. And so 7 units that were there. When I tell you how bad this property was, it was so bad. He had the place rented out, but there was no plumbing and down on the bottom floor in 2 of the units. They had to go to somebody else's unit to use the bathroom.
Oh my God.
They're sleeping on mattresses. It was just, you can't even imagine how bad it was. So I bought that. I renovated it. But again, this was one of those ones that I'm renovating it. And I'm thinking the whole time, I'm going like, I'm just wrapping a ribbon on a turd. That's what I actually felt like.
Right.
So we put more into the renovation than I did in the property. But it turned out like really well. It's dollar for dollar. It's the best property that I have. Easy. So I started with that. When I saw how well that one was doing, I took over the management of my beach house from the rental company. We started doing it ourselves along with these apartments. So that's when we started Turtle Shell Properties. And when I saw how much money we had left on the table using a traditional management company, we started looking for other opportunities.
Okay.
So
Is this when you started your management?
yes,
Yeah, okay.
management here. We've always managed all of our own properties in Cary. Here we used a management company because it was a vacation rental. We just didn't mess with it. But when I started coming here, I saw how much more there was here. So that's when I started doing it. But part of that too was because I started buying stuff because my project in Holly Springs, that big development, got held up with COVID. So it just ground to a halt. I had cash, but I didn't have not enough cash to get that project going. But I'm sitting there and I had nothing to do. So I started looking at opportunities down here. And that's when I really got started down here, doing more and more down here. And it's turned out really well. Now it's just kind of snowballed. We still have our stuff in Jacksonville, so still do that.
And remind me again, Jacksonville?
Oh, it's a shopping center.
Shopping center.
Yeah. And that's where I have a salon there as well. So
they're one of your vendors or customers, or do you actually own
I own the salon. Yeah.
You own the salon?
I run it. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it runs me, but yeah. Yeah.
So you have the real estate in Raleigh, Cary. Yeah. You have real estate here in Surf City, Topsail Island. You've got your salon, shopping mall in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Any other properties? And the residential, obviously.
Well, there's some more commercial properties around here, but yeah. So the salon is kind of an interesting story because I was going to, when I was talking about doing Peterson Station, which is the mixed use, I wanted to pre-lease so I could get the lending from the banks, so like that, to show we had a bunch of interest and we had people. So I was going to put a salon in there because I knew that was could be a very good venture, right? Everything ground to a halt, couldn't do anything. But I'd already done the homework on the salon, and I had 8,000 feet vacant at my shopping center in Jacksonville. That has 200 and some thousand feet. So, but I had 8,000 vacant. There's one spot. I was like, why don't I just do the first one here? So we spent a lot of money doing it, got it up and going. So it's 40 individual spaces. So I have 40 different tenants in there.
Wow.
Each one of them pay weekly. So it's they all have their own room, which is about the size of this room here.
Yeah.
So everyone has their own business and it's hands off. So to me, there's really not much to do. I maybe spend an hour or 2 hours a week on it, if that.
Yeah.
If that.
It's not bad.
No, it's not bad. And it just churns. It just churns. So that turned that into a space that was making me virtually nothing. And now it's one of the best tenants because I charge myself.
Yeah.
And then I make it on both sides. But yeah.
Do you usually go in with a 2-3 year lease, or what's the typical lease period?
It depends where it is. So Peterson Station, Holly Springs, those are all 10-year renewable rollover leases, minimum 10, all of them. And there's a lot of money that goes into that. So nobody's doing short-term lease.
Do you have to put tenant improvements? Like if you sign up a restaurant?
It's all negotiable.
Yeah.
And you give them an allowance, right? So there's an allowance, and it depends on the strength of the tenant. And then if you have to put in more, you're charging them more. So it all kind of works out in the negotiation part. Jacksonville's a whole different animal. So in New River, which in Jacksonville, there's a lot of mom and pop businesses. So they're in their what I call a gross lease. So triple net, your people like Dollar General, Planet Fitness, your call centers, those are all triple net. They're paying their share of the common area maintenance, tax, and insurance. Well, the small mom and pops, they don't understand that concept.
Right.
They're like, my rent's $1,500. Why do I have to pay your insurance? It's not my, it's not my building, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of those are just gross leases. Here's simple concept. Here's what you got, right? So because it's an older center, that's the way that kind of runs. Half of them are triple net, half of them are just gross leases.
Yeah.
And you're right, they're shorter leases, 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. Typically 3 to 5.
Yeah.
What's the square foot, per square foot?
They're much less, anywhere from $14 to $16 a foot.
Okay.
Where in Holly Springs it's 35 plus tie-cam, so it's actually 42.
Isn't that amazing? Just depending on the location.
Yeah.
The rent that you would charge.
It's a lot less in Jacksonville, but again, that's been, I don't know, arguably my best property. It's not the best center. It's older. It's the original strip mall on the East Coast. It's the
Wow.
first one, yeah.
Yeah.
First one. Yeah, so back in the 50s, that's when it was
Yeah.
built.
Is that a opportunity zone by chance?
I think it is. Yeah, I think you could do some opportunity there. But I've got 220,000 feet of retail there.
Mhm.
And, I could see the whole thing being scraped. I mean, it sits on 30 some acres. I mean, it's definitely the opportunity's right there because it's downtown Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, there's a lot of tax incentives for
Yeah.
opportunity zones.
Yes. But that property has been it's churned. I mean, it's churned. I mean, I've owned it for 20 some years. Yeah.
Mm.
And I bought it in bits and pieces. So the previous owner had cut it all up. He used to own North Hills in Raleigh,
Mhm.
and he took that property and bought it and cut it all up into parcels and sold off all the parcels. He kept the last couple of
Yeah.
parcels.
Yeah.
Then I saw an ad in the News Observer,
Mhm.
classified ad, and saw that it was for sale, that piece. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, I think I know where this is. Rode down there. I looked at it. He told me what the price was. I had not met him yet. And I finally met him in Raleigh.
Mhm.
He looked like he couldn't rub two nickels together. I swear this guy was just like,
Yeah.
he could, but he didn't look like that at all.
Yeah.
I mean, and I had written out this super creative idea on how I'd buy the property and, well, do this. But he was selling it at such a cheap price. I
Mhm.
couldn't figure out why he was selling it so cheap. And it was only like 27% leased.
Mhm.
And so I'm trying to do all these figures. I'm looking, and finally I go see him and I write up this whole thing. He looks at it, he goes like, no, tosses the paper. He goes, you're going to give me $25,000. I'm going to take that money today. It's non-returnable. He goes, you're going to close it in 30 days and you're going to make a lot of money. I looked at it, I said, why are you selling it so cheap? He goes, I always leave money on the table. He goes, I'm raising money for something else. I said, okay, I did it.
Yeah.
And 30 days later, there was something I couldn't do. I called him up. He's like, no, go talk to this guy over here. Go talk to that attorney. He goes, he'll get it done for you.
Yeah.
So it was, one of those deals that just kind of came about.
Yeah.
And he was right. At 27% occupancy, it made money.
Mhm.
And so everything else was free, but he wouldn't spend a dime. He would not spend a dime. So he didn't lease the space, couldn't get anything filled up.
Interesting. And you're about to build more apartments here in Surf City, right?
Yeah. We're working with plans are 95% done. Working on bidding it out right now, bidding out the contractors. So
Walk me through that process. So you've got some land, you put together some engineering plans, blueprints.
yeah, somebody else had done. They backed out of the deal the last time the economy turned, right?
Mhm.
So they have this sitting here. They had built 84 units or 81, and there's 56 still left to build. And the economy turned, so they just let it sit. They already had everything done pretty much, right? Well, the economy turns back. Now they're doing big stuff. They're doing 300, 400, 500 units, and they're in the western part of the state. So they had no interest in doing 60 units. To me, that's a big deal. So that's how it came about. But of course, we had to redo all the plans, had to redo everything, because it doesn't last. So and we added 4 units. It was 56. Now it's 60. So I think that'll be a good project. It's just getting anything started, as you know.
Oh yeah.
Just takes.
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard.
People, as you know, people say, "Oh my gosh, you're so lucky." Well, no, I mean, I'm the one that's like laying in bed going like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? Yeah. Or why am I doing this? Why am I doing this?
Right.
Yeah. So that's the hard part.
So when you have your plans, you send them out to bid. So you talk to multiple vendors.
Multiple contractors.
You're basically your own GC at this point.
Yeah. On this one, though, I'll use a GC.
Okay.
We can do it, but we don't have the vendors. We don't have the bandwidth, really. And my experience now with doing the project in Holly Springs, you really turn that over to professional. Like if I'm doing single family, we're getting ready to start a single family on South Shore Drive, we're doing that ourselves. But if you're doing something big, you need somebody that really,
right.
as long as you had a GMP contract and you're not going to fall into those pitfalls, I think that's the way to go.
So you send them out to bid. You get multiple bids from multiple vendors.
You do that, and then you try to figure out where you can value engineer, right? Because obviously the bids come back, and you're like, wait, what? So you have to value engineer it, because your architectural plans, a lot of times they're asking for the sun, the moon, and the stars,
Mm.
and then you have to say, wait a minute, I have to make money here too.
Mm.
This is not going to work with this, so we have to scale back.
Mm.
If I'm doing single family on the ocean, I'm not scaling anything back. We just do it
Mm.
as best we can, and we know that the money will eventually make sense, right?
Right.
But when you do an apartment, it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
So, and I think you've ran into some of the same stuff when you're doing your salt waters.
I sure have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Both Loggerhead, saltwater, and saltwater resort. Yeah.
Loggerhead, I can forgive you on Loggerhead because you didn't know what you're doing. But then you go to saltwater, and I was like, wait a minute, you've already been down this road. What's it they say? Fool me one time, shame on me. Fool you twice, shame on you.
Yeah.
But no, I don't blame you at all. Those are great properties. I
Well,
drive by yours, I'm like, oh, so nice.
Yeah. I have mixed feelings about it. I drive by Loggerhead. I'm like, oh man, I wish I wouldn't have sold it, but I had to fund saltwater resort expansion. And
I'm a reluctant seller, a very reluctant seller.
Yeah.
And there's things that I've sold that I'm like, what did I sell that for? And then I have to go back and go like, wait a minute. The reason why I sold it was because of this.
Right.
I didn't just do it because I felt like selling, because you needed your cash to do this, and
Yeah.
there's no other way to
Yeah.
finagle that. So
Yeah.
I think sometimes you just have to.
And of course, as a developer, you go through like, man, I could have done this much cheaper. I was
Mm.
looking over all the costing of what it costs to build one project. Then you look at the cost of building the next project. You're like, oh my God, so much waste.
On the Holly Springs project, I remember the first estimate came in from the GC, who's a very well-respected, very
Mhm.
good. I started getting these pricing in. And I remember just going through the roof. I couldn't believe, blowing everything out of the water, all the
Mhm.
budgets. The ultimate contractor that's doing it is probably 20, 25 million higher.
Wow.
Just in that time,
Yeah.
how much pricing has gone up.
Mm.
Because you remember when you couldn't get materials and you couldn't,
Yeah.
a lot of things have just gone up. It's the same thing with beach property, right?
Mhm.
I've passed on so many properties. I'm like, you've got to be kidding. And a year later, I go like, oh, what was I thinking? I should have just
Right.
bought it.
Right.
But hindsight, you can't go back but so far.
Right. No, just looking at the economy
Yeah.
and the value of the dollar and the scarcity of
Right.
resources and assets and labor and land, equipment. It's the best time to do it is now. We got into this big argument with my family. They didn't want to do the saltwater expansion. They would want to wait. Let's recoup some of the investment on the first one. But I was pretty insistent. I'm like, you know what? If we're going to do it, now's the time. Like, there's no better time now. This is
Never going to get cheaper.
no.
Never. You can go through a 6-month cycle,
Mm.
a year,
Right.
maybe,
Mm.
but it never gets cheaper. It's
Yeah.
always going to be more. And it's just going to be harder and harder to do. So the longer you sit on it, the more expensive it's going to
Yeah.
get.
So, what is your ultimate target? Like, what is your goal for as far as real estate?
I have my mini goals: how much property I want to own, how much valuation I want to own,
Mm.
that kind of stuff. And I've met or exceeded all those every step of the way.
Mhm.
But exit plan, I don't have an exit plan. Basically, I'm retired, which is kind of a joke.
You're not retired.
No,
No.
but what I mean is that if you work corporate, if you work
Yeah.
for corporate,
Yeah.
you're 40 years or 30 years or whatever you are, you're waiting for the day that you can retire,
Yeah.
right? But when you're self-employed, you never really retire.
No.
You're always going to be looking at the next thing, or look at,
Yeah.
let me look at this. And as long as it's fun and I enjoy doing it, there's days when I do not enjoy it at all. Same as you, right?
Mm.
But there are other days when I find it hugely rewarding.
Mm.
Like now, all of my kids are involved. And so I find a lot of joy, I guess you'd say, in that. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I met an entrepreneur earlier this morning, and we were talking about when you're involved in building and selling a company, it becomes part of your personality. It becomes your lifestyle. And when you have nothing to do, you kind of go through a depressed moment. Like, you have to have a purpose and a mission. And if you don't have a purpose or mission, then you become disoriented with reality and try to do stupid stuff and make mistakes. But I agree. You got to stay busy. You got to keep your mind occupied. And if you enjoy building and real estate and selling real estate and whatever whatever it is, I would, strongly advocate just doing it.
Yeah. It's to me, if I just sold everything and went to the beach here, but every once in a while you think about that. You're like,
Yeah.
well, what's the point in that? What are you going to do?
Nothing.
You're going to play golf?
Right.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
Really? No, I mean, it's more fun looking at something going like, oh my gosh, what could we do here? Even a business, even
Yes.
different businesses are,
Yeah.
they can be hugely rewarding just thinking about how you can grow it and thinking about what you can do. I mean, when my kids come with me ideas, they're like, oh, I could do this at the store. I can do this. And it was like, wow, that's a great idea. That's really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what you like. I mean, to me, that's the reward for me is being able to pass it on, not the real estate. I'm not in love with any property, at all. I don't care. Like I tell the kids all the time, I said, look, something happens to me. I'm not in love with any of it. You just sell whatever you want. It's fine. I said, it's more about what it can bring you as far as opportunity, and it just gives you opportunity to be able to do more things. That's
Right.
all. That's
Right.
all that it does.
Yeah. How important is family to you as far as involving family in your operations and your business?
It's funny. It's very important now. I never really thought my kids would be working with me. I never even thought about it. You just don't think about that kind of thing. You think, well, I'm going to send them to college. I'm going to make sure that I can send them to college, make sure I can get them started in life and what they're going to do, right? But eventually, through varying paths, all of my kids work in the business or in different areas of the business, right? So, and I'm partners with them on some of it because I've started doing that, and it makes it a lot better because then they got skin in the game and they're vested and they know, like if we spend this comes right out of my pocket. It's not just a paycheck.
Right.
Right. So I think that's very important. It's important for them to get that entrepreneurial kind of, feel. And yeah, I'm proud of them. I've grandkids, so and it is funny because back a couple months ago, I got a phone call or actually it was a text from one of Jacob, who's my grandson, one of his friends, said, I met you one time before, but I was wondering if me and a couple of my friends could call you up and talk to you. They're freshman, junior, and senior at ECU. And they're entrepreneurs. They had a business idea they're doing with real estate. So I was like, yeah, sure. Okay. So they called me up and I get on a 2-hour conversation, conference call with them. And my grandson wasn't in that. He's younger. He's only 16. So, but they play soccer together. So they knew him. And, so I was like, wow, I'm so impressed with these kids. I mean, it was just, it was fantastic. But I was like, huh, that came from my grandson.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It feels good when you do that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's important.
Yeah. And I felt smart for a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you mentioned legacy. I mean, I agree with you. I think it's important to involve your family. And what I've done personally is kind of organize a family office where I've got, investments, real estate, and private equity, venture capital. Try to get your kids involved. My kids really don't know a whole lot. They know some, but not everything. And kind of waiting for that time to kind of educate this is what it is and this is how it works. But of course, you want them to do their own thing too.
Yeah.
And share their own passions and explore. But then it's like, oh yeah, by the way, you've got this other thing
I've had that conversation a couple times with a couple of the children. They're like, I'm just so busy right now. I'm like, oh, you don't understand what I've got going on. I said,
yeah.
Okay, well, let me tell you what I've got going on. Just so you know. Just so you know.
Yeah.
Just so you know. Like, okay, not only am I dealing with the stuff that you're handing me, but let's go on to the other stuff.
Right.
Well, I didn't even know about that. I said, I forgot to tell you that. But
what ages of your kids did you start really getting them involved in what you're doing?
All right. So Mike, actually, when he was very young, he actually physically helped me with a lot of it. And then, of course, he came in and, I mean, I used to have those kids when they were little, mowing the grass at the trailer park, collecting rent at the trailer parks. I mean, we're talking down and dirty. I had some apartments in Raleigh that were, I'd say, very sketchy. And I had them working there all the time. Like, I'd go there on a Monday. I thought you guys cleaned this place up. He goes, Dad, we did. We spent all weekend on it. It was like Rumpelstiltskin. Every weekend you'd go there. It's like, what are these people doing?
Yeah.
You know, eventually I sold that. The kids, they finally said, Dad, really, we're not going to do this anymore. You got to get rid of this. I mean, it's just terrible. I sold it. The new owner got shot within 30 days.
Really?
Literally, he didn't get killed, but he got shot. Wow. He didn't know how to collect rent. He collected on a, Friday afternoon where everybody's all jacked up. I said, you don't go collect rent on Friday afternoon. Are you crazy?
Yeah.
But I had them doing all that. I mean, they talk about that today. They'll, oh, you remember the time we went here? Remember the time that this happened? Remember the time that, so they get into that. But getting them involved in the business part. So my daughter now is my partner and runs the consignment store. She started off after, right after high school, and she went to hair school, and she really didn't want to go to college, and she was terrible. I mean, she was terrible. I was like, we got to do something. I can't. I'm about ready to fire her. And then finally one day the light bulb goes off.
Yeah.
And ever since then she's run the place. I mean, innovative, educates herself, self-taught on all kinds of business concepts, everything.
Yeah.
I'm like, where'd that come from?
How do you handle conflict? You ever had any conflict?
Oh, no, I just beat them up.
Yeah. You can say on one side, it's good to have family because you trust them to work in the business. But if you have a problem or a conflict at work, then you have to live with it at Thanksgiving, Christmas. And
I've had that question before. And there really isn't that much conflict with family. There hasn't been anything where we couldn't just, all right, we're just going to do this. Just, ultimately I just say, we'll just do it. And then, or they'll have a better idea.
Right.
And I do like it when the kids have a better solution than I have. I mean, I like it when they don't come to me and they just say, well, the reason why I said, or I'll say to them, okay, explain your thought process. What were you thinking when we did that? Well, because of this, and that. I'm like, oh, I didn't think about that. And that's a better idea than I had. So I like that when when they'll come at it and I know they thought it through, even if it's not what I would have done, if the thought is there, right? So if they thought it through, then I'm like, hey, fantastic. Okay. So then, you have a brain. And that's what the ultimate goal is, to know your kids are actually thinking. They're not going home and they clock out at 5 o'clock and they're home. Like they're thinking of ways to grow the business or what we would do here. So that's
good.
Make
them think creatively and look for opportunity.
Yeah.
Do you have a succession plan? Have you thought about that?
No, I figured when something happens to me, the way I look at it is something happens to me. So then I'm done.
So you're not going to put, come on.
I'll still be dead. So I've had I have had the kids ask before, they're like, hey, what happens if somebody said, well, all right, let's think about this for a minute. Let's start with, just remember, I'll be dead. So there's that.
Yeah.
And I'll make a joke of it. But there's not, we have things set up in trust. We have stuff like that. But there's not a true succession plan. I mean, I think everybody pretty much knows which way everything's going to go, where things will go, but that's a work in progress.
Yeah.
I know we've talked about a little bit about that before.
Absolutely.
Joking aside.
No, it's a common problem.
Yeah.
Well,
it is, because most family businesses don't last past the second generation, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah. Second generation usually ruins it. Third generation, if they're lucky, can recover.
Well, so ours is a little bit different because it's all property, and it's property that we own. We don't manage anybody else's property. So that is a direction that we've been asked about multiple times by other property owners here to manage their properties. I'm like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. Now, that is an opportunity for one of the kids. If they want to do that, they could do that, and it's you can make some good money doing it. I just have no interest in it myself.
Right.
Like it's just too much of it. It's too much of a headache managing your own property. But if you're managing other people's property, you get it from both sides.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah. It's not worth
No.
15, 20%.
It's kind of like the trailer parks. When I was doing trailer parks,
Yeah.
I always say that's a young man's game. It's high. It can be highly lucrative. It's great cash business. It doesn't really appreciate. You can't borrow against it very easily. You can't depreciate it because mobile homes are, not, you can't do that.
Yeah.
So, and you have to work it. You got to work all the time, right? Because you're always collecting, and it turns you into somebody you don't want to be.
Yeah.
I mean, it does. Well, my grandmother just died. Third one this month. I don't care. Pay me. But it turns you into that, right? It turns you mean. I don't want to deal with that. I always say that's a young man's game. Like if you can get a trailer park, if you're 35 years old and you can get a trailer park or two, have at it. But you better have an exit because you just don't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
You just don't want to, the lower income stuff. You just don't want to do it.
Yeah.
It's stressful, very stressful. And you can't, with anything lower income like that, if you're taking B rate properties or C rate, you can't find management to manage it for you. So you're going to work it yourself.
Yeah.
No one wants to touch it. No good company wants to touch it.
Well, especially if you're going to get shot at collection.
Yeah. Then there's that. Yes.
So if Friday afternoon's not a good day to collect, when is?
Sunday morning.
Sunday morning.
Sunday morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
As you're going to church.
As you go to church.
By the way.
Well, it's a funny story, which I forgot about this story. So one of my sons goes there to collect the rent at this apartment one day. And the guy he goes, I have to go get it. I'll be right back. He comes back 30 minutes later, gives him the cash. 20 minutes after that, the police show up and arrest the guy. He just robbed a store to get the rent. Yes. I was like, are you kidding? He goes, I didn't know what happened. He goes, yes, that's what the guy did.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. Yeah, we'll go buy something else. But, I mean, there's so many stories like that in some of that property. When I had one trailer park where the people left and they didn't pay and they skipped out, and I go in there and the place was such a wreck. I mean, it was a wreck like you could not imagine somebody living there. So I have a dump trailer, big dump trailer. We loaded it up with all the crap, and it was crap. I mean, just mounds and mounds of clothes. I mean, it was like they're hoarding, but it was terrible. Loaded it all up. We found out where they had moved to. I backed the trailer up to the front door, and I dumped it at the front door. They couldn't get out the front door without climbing through the trash. And the guy was screaming at me, saying, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" I said, "We thought would help you move. I saw a few things you left behind."
Yeah.
Drove off.
You're lucky you didn't get shot.
We were armed. Yeah, but that's me younger being a hothead. Like, you shouldn't do that.
Right.
I would not recommend doing that.
Not in today's time.
Not today. Not even then. No, just don't do that. But,
what do you think of RV parks? Have you looked at those?
I haven't. A friend of mine owns one, and I think he's doing very well with it. I think they do very well if you get the right location.
Right.
I mean, very low maintenance, very low, not nearly as hard as like short-term rentals, which is what we're doing a lot of down here.
Right.
I think it's a great thing to get into.
I read a statistic, like there's more RVs than pads at RV parks. Like there's supply-demand imbalance. So.
The last couple of years, we bought some hunting property up in Pennsylvania where we hunt, and it joins my best friend's property. And we've been hunting there for 30 years. Well, we were going to build on that property, but then we found a property across the street that came with like 24 acres, a big horse barn, horse pastures, and a beautiful cabin. Like it's like a lodge, but it goes for 22 acres. And down below, like, look, we're not going to hunt this property. We just needed the house. So that's what we're thinking about doing, is putting little mini cabins on there or something. I said, look, let's go ahead and figure out how we make money on this property. So that's our next project that we're going to do. The fun project. I call that a fun project. It's like, oh, that'd be fun. But we've thought about RVs, to your point. Like, because it's right there in Pennsylvania, where it is, right by Cook's Forest, up there, near Lake Erie, Clarion County, up in that area. great tourist attraction in the summer. Well, we're not hunting there in the summer.
Right.
So
Well, they just got some snow there, right?
Yeah.
Lake effect
Yeah.
snow.
it gets cold.
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Last year when I hunted in January there in second season of bow season, I was hunting in the snow. Didn't see anything but frostbite. But
Right. That's good.
yeah, it's kind of what's next, right? What are you going to do next?
Right.
I guess I'd ask that of you because you're in Virginia, but you're migrating more and more here. You're kind of like me in Cary. So I spend 85% or so of my time here now. So I'm basically here. And I think I'm going to move my permanent residence here, like my boating, because I figure I can make more of a difference here than I can in Cary.
Right.
I think we've talked about that before too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I actually
makes sense.
I took my house in Cary and cleaned it up a little bit and started Airbnb-ing that when I'm not there. So not just Airbnb, Vrbo and stuff, but
Yeah. How's that turned out?
great. I'm not there. I lock all my closets. I've got my sports cars locked in the garage. But I bought it all out. So there's the theater room, pool table, weight room. I mean, people love it. Outside fire pit. And I mean, it makes it where it pays for itself and then some. Yeah. So it's like, hey, why not?
Yeah.
It forces me to keep the place clean.
There you go.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
But I remember when I was talking about doing it, even the kids are like, what? You're gonna do, I said, why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
You don't ever sell your real estate, do you?
I try not to. Like I have some, but not like I have in the past. But like I said, I'm a reluctant seller. You know, when like the apartments in Raleigh, I think we'd all had our fill of those. There was no, you know, we tried fixing them up several times. And you just get the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's, you know, and the trailer park, same thing. So you really like. I like where I am now, getting more Class A nice stuff. I think you're much better off. It's much easier. People take care of your stuff.
Right.
It's much easier, but it's harder to get into. So to start with, you're doing a lot of the low rent stuff.
Right. Just to build up momentum and cash.
Yeah, because you can actually make that deal, but the bigger deals, the really nice deals, you're never going to get those.
Right.
They're harder to get.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially when you need leverage and debt to go after it.
Well, that's real estate. It's all leverage, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you can't leverage it, you know you got a bad property.
Right.
Yeah, about a couple of those.
That's good. Well, I definitely look forward to seeing more development that you're having here in Surf City. And
I was getting excited about it today. I was thinking about these different things. I saw I started to watch the stuff on the marina, in Surf City. That's a sore subject. You know, that's a very sore subject.
Yeah.
But we'll see how that goes. But I started thinking about some of that stuff. I was like, you know, I really want to expand what we're doing here. And I think we've got the right game plan, I think.
Awesome. We'll definitely look forward to seeing the next adventures.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Sounds
Can't wait
good.
to see yours too.
Well, I'm on hold for now, so we'll see.
Well, everybody says that until they're not. Like, I'll find out you're not on hold 6 weeks after you stop being on hold.
Yeah, right.
You're like, what happened?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I forgot. Did I tell you? No, you didn't tell me. Yeah,
that's part of the strategy.
Yeah, it's part of the strategy. Like, say, what's your strategy?
I don't have one.
Oh yeah, no, I have one. I'm just not sharing it.
Yeah,
it's because I don't have one. You know, there's
just
stuff just happens sometimes.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's when you're an entrepreneur, you can pivot very quickly. A lot of times, things you don't think you're going to be interested in, you're interested in.
Right.
You know, it's like, never thought about that. It's a great idea. Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
Just to be ahead of the game.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again, bud.
Well, I enjoyed it.
Yes,
I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Amplified CEO is produced by Topsail Insider, edited by Jim Mendes-Pouget, and sponsored by Cape Fear Ventures. For more information about Amplified CEO, Richard Stroupe, or Cape Fear Ventures, please contact Christa at 910-800-0111 or Christa at topsailinsider.com.